Hello, this is Ralph K. Ginorio. Welcome to part 3 of my video version of the lessons pertaining to the historical background to the terrorist atrocities of September the 11th, 2001. Part 1 dealt with personal reaction. Part 2 dealt with the events of that day. And what I concluded part 2 with was an admonition. Your mother was wrong when she told you that it takes two to fight. It does not. The opposite of war is not peace, sometimes it is surrender. If you are faced with a threat, a person or a force that wants to take from you your life, your freedom, your wealth, your loved ones, you have two choices. If you're dealing with an irreconcilable force, the definition of irreconcilable is you can't talk to it. You can't reconcile with it. You cannot make peace with it on anything but its terms. And if its terms is your destruction or your enslavement, your only choice is to either accept that enslavement or to fight. We Americans are not a warlike people. Every time we have had the world in our hands, we've given it back freer and better than it was. Anyone who wants to believe that the American empire is after hegemony and world domination a la 1960s anti-Vietnam War protesters, just look at what we did. Not what you think, but what we did after World War II. When Europe was bombed back to the Stone Age, Asia also, when the Russians did what every other world empire does, which is take land and try to hold it in the name of communism, but it was in fact a greater Russian empire, what did we do? We not only rebuilt France and Britain, our allies, we rebuilt Germany and Japan. We built them up so well that they took from us the dominance in auto building in the 1970s. We built our competitors. We built free people who would stand with us or against us based on their choice. The American people do not want hegemony. We do not want world empire. But since the decline of the British Empire at the end of World War I, more and more, because of our financial strength up to the present moment, our political and military strength, which comes from that financial strength, and frankly also because of the moral fiber that held this country together, basic Judeo-Christian values of decency, fair play, and common sense, we have been the dominant world empire for at least the end of World War II, and arguably from 1917 when we first took center stage and rescued the Western powers during World War I. We didn't want this war, but war is upon us. The enemy, Islamic terrorism, Islamism, Islamofascism, call it what you will. One representative of it is Al-Qaeda, but it's only one head of the Hydra. They've been at war with us since 1973. They're still at war with us, whether we have President Bush or President Obama, whether we have a person who's willing to fight them tooth and nail or a person who's willing to concede again and again and again points and more than points. They are still after us. Why? Where does such hate come from? That it can destroy 3,000 people and the response is to dance in the streets with the ululating cry of the female Arab. Well, it comes from the same place that some of the best impulses come from, which is the arrival of monotheism on this earth. Our story begins almost 4,000 years ago in the world's first civilization, ancient Sumer. Now, the Sumerians were the first culture, a group of people bound together by core beliefs, to have built cities, established specialized labor, monetary exchange, complex institutions of culture, including the military, government, the courts, an economy that made sense that was beyond mere barter, as well as the institutions of family, of recourse, beyond simply the rule of force. The Sumerians were divided into city-states, and one of those city-states was Haran. And in Haran there was a man named Abram. And Abram came home one day And he said the most remarkable thing to the people, his family, friends, and loved ones, his employees, his fellow sheep herders. He said, God talked to me. Right, they said. Okay, God talked to you, Abram. Was it the god of gambling? Woo! That'd be fun. Maybe the goddess of love, the god of secrets, might give you power. Or was it the god of war, which could be scary and terrifying, but not as scary and terrifying as the god of famine or disease? You see, to the ancient mind, polytheism, the belief in many disparate gods, made total sense. They simply could not grasp the notion, or didn't want to accept any concept that had the God who made kittens make snakes in the grass. God who makes somebody die young of a preventable accident or a wasting disease is the same God that is behind the feeling of first love's first kiss. To them, it is clear we are in a world beset by incredible powers. Just live through a thunderstorm without a good shelter around you and you'll understand that. Deal with the terrible reality of disease or ill health or of calamity and you'll understand that. But it made no sense to the ancient mind that there was one power behind them all. It was clearly a war of the gods or a conflict of the gods and we were chessmen. But Abram said no. God. All-knowing, all-powerful. God. Creator of heaven and earth. God talked to me. And to paraphrase Bill Cosby, their response was, right. Yeah, God. Singular, talk to you. But Abram would not shut up about this. He kept talking to anyone who would listen about God and having talked to him. And finally, and this is an early echo to what happens to Muhammad many, many years later, Abram, in his insistence on monotheism leaves. Perhaps because he has to leave, because his insistence has made him stand out from the people around him, and to be an individual is to be indecent. Perhaps his insistence on there being a one God made him odious in the sight of his fellow people from Haran. As the Bible tells it, Abram goes out into the wilderness, not knowing where he's going. Now, if you've ever made a trip across country by car, you understand what a big undertaking long-distance travel is. And that's knowing that you're eventually going to a particular place by a particular route in the relative comfort of the interior of a car on interstate highways, in a land where money works, protected by police and laws. Abram was going out into the yawning wilderness, where everywhere else was barbaric, savage tribes, or maybe a few settled farms and towns, without any clear notion of where he was going. It probably was a combination of desperation and faith, but it took guts. So for God's sake, literally, Abram goes out into the wilderness and wanders for many years. Eventually comes to the land of Canaan, travels to and from Egypt. As an old man is promised a natural-born son, something that neither he nor his wife Sarai can accept. But as the story goes, God gives Abram a natural-born son with his wife Sarai. And God makes promises to Abram about the scope of his posterity, that he would be a father of nations. Abram loves his son. He loves Isaac. He dotes upon him. And one day God says, bring Isaac up to the mountain. Nobody else, just Isaac. Oh, and bring a knife. Well, Abram brings his son and brings a knife and hopes as per usual, that he is going to be sacrificing the best goat or sheep he has. And when God sees Abram and Isaac on the holy mountain near a flat stone, he says, "Take Isaac and lay him down and stretch him out and sacrifice him in my name." Abram had been waiting decades of time. Against all odds, his aged wife and his aged self had given birth. And the God who had caused him to be separated from the people of Haran and wander the wilderness for most of his life without any security except the faith of God, is now saying, "Take this gift that I've given you, this beautiful boy, and kill him for me." This is a human moment. Abram does as God commands. Takes the knife, raises it, and as he begins to plunge the knife, God says, "Stop! Stop! Your fidelity is beyond question. Give that boy a kiss, give him a hug, love him, send him on his way, be a good father to him. And listen to me. We have a covenant, a contract, an agreement. I, as your God, will lead and teach and guide you as my chosen people, and you as the father of my chosen people will be keen to learn, eager to listen, and dedicated to follow where I lead, wherever that is, whether you understand it or not." And Abram says, "Yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord," thanking God for the life of his son and for all of it, for everything. That covenant, whether you are a Christian or not, a Muslim or a Jew or not, that covenant is a historical fact. The belief in that covenant motivates the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic faiths, the three great monotheistic faiths, which together comprise most human beings. And throughout history has been one of the most powerful forces that shape human civilization and human conduct. To understand history, you don't have to be a believer. I find that it helps, but I'm a Christian. What do you expect me to say? You have to, however, understand and acknowledge the power of religious faith. And there is a very short list of beings or people or personalities that are more important in the history of human religion than Abraham, which is his new name. Abraham's covenant with God is the basis of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Children of the same God. Children of the same God are at war with one another in the present day. There are no wars like civil wars. There are no fights like family fights. There are no struggles more bitter and hotly contested than between people who have so much in common. Next on the docket, Moses, for next time. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Good day.